Hello and welcome to the Counselor Updates and Enhancements tutorial for January 2017. We'll get started here with the first change related to patient visit templates. This change enables you to create specific names for individual templates. So for example, if you have templates that have tables or a lot of text and it's difficult to tell when you are selecting them from your template list, which is which, Counselor now has a way where you can simply label the template. So here we go. So let's take this as a longer template, but we can summarize that very quickly as just saying no warning signs of ear disease, and that is what you will see when you're selecting templates while you're creating your professional report or chart notes or patient report recommendations, instead of seeing the full wording or the initial few lines of the wording. So this comes in particularly handy, as I mentioned, if you have long templates. So this would apply, of course, to tinnitus reports, APD, speech pathology type reports, where you may have long templates with lots of text, additionally tables. This will help summarize that and help you access those much quicker. This feature is available for all of the sections within the patient visit screen, so the patient report history, results, recommendations, the custom section, the patient report recommendations, as well as the chart notes. So please let us know if you have any questions about how to utilize that. You do not have to use this, however, so if you're happy with the way your templates currently are, you don't have to change a thing. All right, so let's jump back here. Now the template preview. This is a neat feature that lets you practice with some different layouts, texts, and see what happens very quickly. So for example here, I'm going to jump into, I should show you that again, under forms and letters, into cover letters. And I should mention really all of these areas have this feature applied. So as I'm looking at, let's just look at the referral thank you. Maybe I made some tweaks here, I adjusted the language. Now I want to save and preview. Counselor will ask me to select a patient to use as the basis for the preview, and I've already been looking at Erin Jones, so she automatically popped up. But if you didn't have a patient in place, you would just start typing in their name and then select them from there. Then you click preview, and that will open a PDF with a sample of what you've been working on. So here's an example of the cover letter. Now, of course, there's no physician information because we don't have that selected yet, but in the actual cover letter, you'd have the physician information. And then you can see the rest of the template laid out here. So it fills in the placeholders, and so you get a sense of what you're doing. So if you see a small mistake or something you want to add, you can very quickly just jump right back in, make the change, preview again. So it's a very quick way of determining how your cover letters, fax cover sheets, text message templates, how all of those will behave once you send those out. And then very quickly you can update and adjust those. All right. Okay, moving on here then to some changes that specifically affect Counselor Complete OMS. When you are scheduling an appointment, you have the ability now to add the patient's companion's information. So let's go ahead and look at the schedule. And I should mention, by the way, this can be added when you're editing appointments as well. But let's go ahead and add a new appointment here for Thursday morning. As we look at the schedule, of course, we go through the normal process of adding the patient in. Nothing changes there. Let's go ahead and put any referral type or appointment type. A referral type, that's optional. What you'll see here is there's a new drop down here for companion. So let's say Jimmy is bringing in his father, and his father's name is Robert. Okay, then once you save that, that name will be available within the pop-up as well. So by hovering, you can see the patient's companion name. Now, of course, this changes. You can very easily just go right back into the appointment and change it up. So an example of this would be, let's say you call the patient to confirm, and you say, will you bring anyone to your appointment? Yes, my father will be accompanying me. But then when the appointment comes around, Jimmy shows up by himself without his father. You could certainly perhaps take this out. So you're saying, okay, the father didn't show. Maybe you add it to the notes section. It's up to you. But it would provide some flexibility as far as determining what you expect to happen, so prior to the appointment, versus what actually happened when the patient arrived. All right, so I'll click Save there to leave that in place. All right, now we have payment details. So this has been a request that we've received a fair amount recently, and for good reason. The idea here is that when you are taking payment from an insurance payer, it's nice to be able to track who made that payment. So beyond just saying insurance. So I'm going to jump into a patient profile here and then open an invoice with an existing amount due, and then jump into payment. And once I select insurance, you'll notice a new area pops open called insurance payer. Here I would just start typing if I wanted to select the insurance company. Okay, so I just start typing BCBS. I can then choose the insurance company. Let's say its payment method is check. And the payment amount here, let's just say it's $40. Oh, keep that simple. There we go. And now to add the payment and log that Blue Cross Blue Shield was the payer. And you can see that then under the business report generator, under payment report generator, and that will be stored here under insurance payer. So now if you sorted through this, you could track who those specific payers were. Okay. All right, so now the next area, you just saw a little bit of this, the autocomplete features. So in order to make the system function quicker and make it easier to use, Counselor has added in some autocomplete features. So let's look at a couple specifically here. Let's search for our patient again there real quick. There we go. So first off, on the patient administration screen, there are areas here for the referring provider and primary provider. In the past, when you click there, you'd see a long list of all the physicians. The one issue there, of course, is that they often were very, very long lists and a little difficult to navigate. So in this case, you can just start typing in the physician's name. In this case, when I started typing in this guy's name, he came up. If I typed in something else and it didn't apply, of course, it wouldn't show up there. But this does give you the ability to quickly see, okay, there are two physicians with Will in their name. Let's go choose Aaron Wilkinson, and then we'll click Save at the bottom of the screen, and that's going to lock in those changes. Now, the same thing applies for the insurance policies. So when I click on New Policy, you'll be able to see that, once again, instead of having a really enormous list of payers, I can start to type in the payer's information, and that will then enable me to click on it and add it as this patient's payer. With the next set of features, feature release, we will be adding back in the full list, so you will have access to look at that. Although we do believe that the typing in the autocomplete is still going to be the fastest way to access that information and add it for the patient. So let's go ahead here very quickly and just add in policy information and then save. Oh, and I missed one thing there. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. There we go. Okay, so now we have the policy in place. Let's jump back to the patient's profile, and there we go. All right, so jumping on the list then again, we have the Widget Security. So this is the ability to restrict what individual staff members can see regarding their widgets. So let's go up here to Administration, and then User List. So let's just go ahead and take a look at Bill here. By default, the users, your staff members, will be able to see all of the widgets. But if you want to, so by default, it'll automatically just set to all widgets. But if you want to, you could specify and say, no, Bill should only be able to see these 3 or these 4 widgets, whatever it is that you want him to see specifically. This, of course, does come in handy, particularly if you're working with consultants, that maybe you don't want them to see all the widgets. You want them to focus in on the ones that are applicable for their job. I should mention that all the widgets are still governed by the security levels. So, for example, if a staff member does not have access to the business reporting, right, so they can't see the aggregate invoices, for example, then they still would not be able to see those widgets on their dashboard, whether or not you had set those here. So the security levels will still come into play and protect you, just so you set the high level as to what you want the user to be able to see, the staff member to be able to see, and then you can further refine that if you wish through the widget security area. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, please let us know. We'd be happy to walk you through how these security roles and the widget limiter affects what your individual staff members can see. All right, so moving on, really quick on the monthly units widget, we've now added a net units column, so pretty straightforward. It just helps make that widget a bit clearer and easier to manage. Then within the patient search and visit activity searches, there's a couple things. First off, when you run the search and then you download the results, the primary insurance will now be added in a separate column. And this comes up handy if you want to see all the patients that had visits last year that were Medicare based, right? Or there's a variety of reasons you may need to identify the information. This helps you do so very quickly, both through the patient search and the visit activity, which refers to the patient visits, both of those searches. The second area here, the visit activity search, lets you then decide if you want to search by patients with devices or without devices. Now, you don't have to select anything there, so if you want to just leave that open, that's fine. So I would give you all patients whether or not they had a device or not. But of course, you can narrow it down further and say, I just want to look at the patients that had a visit, they recorded a visit for, and they had devices. And of course, there are a whole myriad of other filters through the visit activity search as well, but these are brand new. New placeholder, pretty straightforward, the patient's preferred name. So if you have any templates where you want to show the patient's preferred name, perhaps on letters, counselor can now manage that. If you set the patient's preferred name as the placeholder, let's say in a letter that said Dear so-and-so, or in a text message or something, and the patient did not have a preferred name in place, they just had first and last name, counselor will then automatically revert to that first name, so that way you can use that patient preferred placeholder, and it will still handle it well if the patient does not have a preferred name in place. All right. So the next area here we have the task new task description. I'm sorry, what's called annual review. So just show you where that is. That's available under administration and under the to-do list subscriptions. This is really here so that you can very quickly determine or add tasks to your list or to your clinic list if a patient's profile needs to be reviewed. And this comes into play a lot as clinics grow, you get larger patient databases, and you want to stay on top and just make sure, are we actually reviewing their files annually just to see, do we need to update their insurance information? Maybe they haven't been in a couple of years, or just a variety of things to make sure and check things over. Is this their current address and phone number and contact information? So it just gives you a reminder over time to check in with those patients and helps keep your database obviously as accurate as possible. All right, and by the way, that is based on the date of birth, so you'll get the the task will come up annually based on their date of birth. Now, if the patient was in 2 weeks before and you already updated the information, then you can go ahead and just complete that task. So it's really designed for perhaps those patients where you haven't seen them for a little while. All right, and then lastly we have the opportunity tracking. The opportunity tracking lets you basically track what happens from the appointment to the visit to the invoice, particularly if you have instances where you're anticipating there's an opportunity to dispense hearing instruments. So this lets you track a lot of great information. In the past, this was a little bit more restrictive on what you could do. Counselors set the opportunity reasons, meaning like, for example, if the patient was not converted, there were a variety of reasons you could say why the visit wasn't converted into a sale of hearing instruments. That has now been opened up, so you can decide, I want to add additional information. So here, for example, if a visit wasn't converted into a hearing aid sale, you would need to decide whether it was they already have devices that are already 4 years older, they're concerned about cost, no perceived disability, other, and patient not motivated. You now can edit this language. You also can add more options to this. So the goal here is to make this increasingly flexible so you can track those opportunities and have it reflect specifically what you want within your own clinic. So it helps you make better use of all that data. All right, so thank you all very much for all your ideas. Many of these came directly from questions, comments from all of you, so thank you very much and keep them coming. And thank you very much for joining us for the Updates and Enhancements tutorial. Please let us know if you have any questions or if we can help in any way. Have a wonderful week.